Hello again, everybody. Here we are again, Square the Circle Music Channel. You came back for more. I knew you would. We're talking again today about music appreciation. That's right. This is a special list. This is a different list. This is 10, count them 10 albums that you can enjoy with your children, that your children will likely enjoy just as much as you do. I wanted to put this little list together. This was inspired by, well, not really inspired by, but it was just an idea that was given to me by my good cousin Kelly. Thanks for the idea. Talking about music that can be enjoyed with the kids just as much as you enjoy it. So not so much like the tempo for tots, like Casper Baby Pants, soundtrack from Frozen kind of thing. I'm talking about stuff that is like in your collection that you can go out and buy that will give you just as much, good feelings as your children. It can become a centerpiece for all sorts of new ideas and topics and concepts, and just like a real kind of a launching platform for learning and love. I know that sounds kind of woo-woo and kind of silly, but I mean it. I mean every word of it. I'll just get right into it. Wouldn't be a major list if it weren't for having a Yes album on that list. I got to talk about this because it's such a monumental fucking album, for one, and me being a child of the 80s, growing up in the early 80s, I mean, it was just such a huge part of my childhood, as well as I'm sure millions and millions of other people all across the world. What this album went like triple platinum. I mean, every song on the A side was a radio single. I mean, it was just a monster of a success. And now these days, I have a tape and I put it in my truck, and we get in my truck, and right from the get-go, my son's like, and then we're both in the truck just like rocking out together. My son's 7 years old. He adores this album. Even my daughter, she, rolls her eyes a little bit, but kind of like, she's like, this is Yes, Dad? Yes, sweetheart, this is Yes. Okay, whatever. They love the shit out of this album. I think everybody does to a certain degree, right? It must be on like a lot of people's like, a little bit ashamed to admit that you love this album so much kind of thing. Me, I mean, whatever. It's a fucking just a monster. So, anyone that needs some music in their collection that both the kids can enjoy, and if you're a fan of, things pop sensible and progressive to a certain degree, I mean, this didn't really keep up with the other progressive music of the world of that era of the early 80s, but man, the boys really they did something right. Trevor Horn, what an amazing engineer, producer, mastermind of this album, and a lot of early 80s rock and roll. He had his hands all over it. So, and when you get the other Trevor, Trevor Rabin in there, who's just, kind of the wunderkind, or whatever they call that, just kind of the boy wonder with just a million, giant bag of tricks. They really just pulled off a monumental success, nearing kind of like the twilight of their career. I guess you wouldn't say the twilight of their career, because they're fucking septuagenarians, those who are still alive. They're septuagenarians and they're still killing it. So, yeah. Sorry, I could go on forever about these guys. I'll put this down now. It's the first one on the list. So, yeah, dude, get the Yes album, 90125. All right, moving along. This, staying in that kind of, well, it's not within the same wheelhouse. It's in the same, early 80s. This was an album that was playing a lot in my household when I was growing up. My mother, the wonderful woman, God rest her soul, had such an eclectic, beautiful, beautiful taste in music, and she would be just spinning records of all types and colors and just everything. And that, growing up in the early 80s, the very early 80s, that was, this was the centerpiece of our family. This was what it was, gathering around the fire. It was the record player. And Dad was working late nights, and it was just us kids at home with my mom, just listening to music every night, all day, all day. When we weren't at school, it was just music. And so this was something that was on, and I kind of gained a little bit of, like, early on kind of, culture, and just kind of an understanding, not really culture, as cultured as a kid in Springfield, Oregon can be, was able to kind of like tip my toe into a world of interesting things, musically speaking. So anyway, sorry, without further ado, the mastermind himself of, a giant, if not the godfather of electronic music, Tomita, Isayo Tomita is his name. And I'm sure you've all grown familiar with this man and the things he's associated with all throughout the 70s and into the 80s. And I'm not sure what he did beyond the 80s. I've never looked into his career into the late 80s and beyond. But I know that he was just a monster of a success all throughout the 70s and 80s with his ability to be able to take classical composers and reimagine and set them in a light of, the neo abstract, this composite that everyone had now the tools to be able to, like, just make in Technicolor with all the soundscapes of, the electronic music scene. He's back there with all his, his oscillators and his Moogs and just all this crazy shit, and just patching it all together. Managed to just pull off all kinds of just interesting, fun little warbles and ticks and bounces and bleeps and bloops, and the kids just love it. I loved it as a child. It was just fascinating. It just took me away, and equally so for this new generation, my children. It's very endearing. He takes classical compositions by he highlights like one composer per album. Generally, a lot of times this. Specifically being compositions by Claude Debussy. So these are all Debussy, his most famous compositions. The Clair de Lune, and just like you'll recognize a lot of stuff off this album. My favorite was always, and my children's favorite is the short and sweet little snippet, little fun play for piano. It's called Gollywog's Cakewalk. Yeah. Not much more can be said, honestly. Everybody should incorporate some Tomita into their lives. If you like electronic music and you respect and love things from that era, from the 70s and 80s, with the classical music infused, he takes, he's got a whole album dedicated to Holst and the Planet Suites, and Stravinsky and Beethoven, and just all kinds of magic. So I highly recommend get into some of this, and your kids will have a lot of fun with it too. I promise you that much. Okay, moving along. Here's one definitely for the kids that, of course, adults will enjoy too. Again, if you like electronic music or ambient, down-tempo, things of that nature. I've featured this artist before in my first video, which was the My Favorites of 2020 video. I talked about this artist, C418, and his compositions for the video game Minecraft. This is the first volume alpha. So you'll hear the more kind of just, I guess you could say the A-sides. The tunes from the video game, they're a little bit more prevalent, rather than just kind of like the smaller snippets that you get in more of kind of the darker corners of the game. You'll hear the more main kind of thematic kind of moments from the game in this album. I was very excited when I discovered that this had been repressed in 2020, and I didn't have to pay $150 for a copy of this. When I discovered it, my nephew and my son helped me discover this, and I thank them still to this day for turning me on to the Minecraft music. I still have never played the game, but the music is enough. It gives me enough of what I need. And like I said, the children just adore this. They wake up all, shit-headed and smoky-eyed in the morning, and gotta sign on to the Clever and the Zoom, and I don't want to go to school, Dad, and then I just kind of walk over here and just kind of plop it on and do the thing, and suddenly they're like, oh, Minecraft music. And it's not because they're rehashing and like reliving and experiencing the game and the gameplay and chasing after, the creepers or whatever they are, it's because it's opening up that place, that pleasure center in their brain that, that they associate with like pleasant feelings, This is what music should do. Music should take you to those places and invite you into warm atmospheres, and leave it till later in life to be smashed down by the drudgery and the existential nightmare that is adulthood, and love lost and addiction and all that great shit that we get to experience in life. Let the children have their Minecraft, and we can enjoy it too. Every parent, if you decided to have kids, or even if you didn't, whatever, this is something that can really be enjoyed by all. So get out there and get you some C418, the Minecraft alpha and beta volumes. Okay, moving along here. This one needs a little bit of an explanation, I suppose. So I come from a long heritage of, Celtic background. My great-grandparents came from Scotland. So on my mother's side, we're all very, very heavy Scottish roots. And needless to say, in my childhood, there was always a lot of Celtic folk music on. If we weren't listening to NPR on the radio, listening to the Sunday Celtic music that was on, what do they call it? Anyway, yeah, all over the radio on Sundays, and my mother just had a myriad of LPs and CDs in the 90s, and she just adored and loved her heritage. And of course, not just because of her heritage, like the music and its beauty and its stylings, and just where it can take you, its ups and downs, and just what a wonderful musical heritage that part of the world has. And so we were gifted, and we were glad to be a part of that world. So it was always on, and I didn't even need to like warm in. I mean, it was just immediately from birth, just a part of me, and it's always been a part of me. Even still to this day, I hear the pipes 20 miles away, and I get hair on the back of my neck standing up. It does that to me. So it's always been in my household too. My children growing up, I want them to know that there's some of that some of that dirty shit in their blood, and I think they do. I think they hear it, and I think they feel it, because most people, when they start to hear any of those pipes or any of anything, most people kind of like a little bit of a cringe, maybe, who knows. They seem to like it, and it was especially brought to their attention when I started spinning this album for them many years ago, and they immediately fell just deeply, deeply in love. A lot of people, you may know this group. I'm sure a lot of folks do. They gained a lot of notoriety and huge success. I mean, I'm talking like Grammy winning, platinum shit for their Christmas albums. This is Mannheim Steamroller, now dubbed Chip Davis's Mannheim Steamroller. They went the route of like the Jeff Lynne's ELO thing. It's like, now that band belongs to him. But they've been making killer nerd music since the 70s. And talk about, I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Look at these fucking sitting in the middle of the forest on stumps playing their wood flutes and shit like fucking Jethro Tull. And oh man, it's so great. So like I said, it's some serious Revenge of the Nerd shit music, like awesome drum machines and like kind of weirdo little electronic driven music, but with very serious, very legit, talented musicians busting it on all their, the Celtic instruments. We're talking hammer dulcimer and, wood flute and the Uilleann pipe and Highland bagpipe and like, all the good stuff. And there's heavy compositions in there. There's symphonic. They get strings in there. They're legit. They're doing it. And the no holds barred. They're doing some real heavy nerd lifting, and it's fucking great. Anybody that has any space in their heart and love for Celtic folk, contemporary Celtic music, Celtic rock, all that stuff, that fusion of world and Celtic folk rock stuff. This shit's the bee's knees. It's just killer. You'll love it. And the kids immediately will just be like dancing around the room, running circles around the room. They won't even know why. They won't even be able to explain it. They'll have giant shit-eating grins on their faces, and they'll just be running around the room and just loving every second of it. So, yeah, get yourself some of Mannheim Steamrollers. Fresh Air series. This is part 3 in the Fresh Air series. They did at least 6, all throughout the late 70s through the 80s, even into the 90s, I think. Kind of beat that horse dead, but part 3. Get part 3. It's fantastic. You'll love it. Yeah. So, man, as far as like the nerdery goes, that's kind of like, that's like the Iliad and Odyssey all rolled into one for me right there as far as nerd shit goes. that's just about as nerd-tastic as I go. So, let's, well, I don't know. This shit's pretty nerdy too. I've talked about these guys before. You guys know how I feel about the band Camel. My children also love Camel. This is one specifically I recommend for the family because it's just, there's nothing objectionable in here. None of the lyrical content. The music is all just this like long, all-encompassing rainbow of just kind of like beautiful, track to track to track. Everything differs slightly. There's still moments of just very wonderful, soft, progressive fusion jazz is, where they're kind of coming from. But then the next song may be kind of this like hoed down, boot stomping on the farm kind of, song. And they go through all sorts of interesting little travels in this album. This was kind of middle career for them. I believe it was 1981, I want to say. It doesn't say on the back. This is a Japanese press, and it doesn't have the date, but I'm pretty sure 1981. Kind of middle of the road in their career. They were getting a little less experimental and more pop sensible, but nothing wrong with that. This album's called Breathless. The title track itself, Breathless, an amazing 10-minute journey of, like I said, kind of soft prog jazz. And then there's like, there's elements like I'm hearing of stylings that like, of like out of a Pink Floyd record kind of a thing. And, they hit every little bit of all the genres in this one. And it's one of them, in my opinion, one of their more underrated and unknown ones. Like I said, kind of middle career, so they didn't get a lot of like hype about this. Everyone was kind of just like, what are these guys doing? Nobody knows. Are they a disco band? Are they a prog band? Are they a jazz band? Like, whatever. My kids love them. I love them. I'll never forget the first time I put this on. My kids were playing with Legos on the floor, and my son, he was just barely about like 2 years old, and he's sitting on the floor, and this is playing, and he's eating chicken nuggets, and he's humming, and he's kind of just like and shrugging his shoulders and eating his chicken nuggets and dipping them in the sauce, and it was, yeah, photographic moment. Sorry, I had to share that with you. But like I said, this is one of those ones that is just like, you put it on at lunchtime on a sunny day, and it's going to make your fucking day. Everyone's going to smile. Everyone's going to have a good time. It's toe tapping. Great album. Get some. Everyone should have some more Camel in their collection. I'm a big purveyor of that. Okay, we're going to go quite about 180 degrees from where we just were, but not in a negative light. This is, these guys are known for being pretty heady, pretty cerebral, pretty serious business. Coming out of, Deutschland, and being monster jammers of, krautrock electronic scene. We're talking about Tangerine Dream. Highly enjoyable album. More of an unknown, kind of more obscure one of their albums. Everyone knows of, Stratosphere and Phaedra and, Rubicon and all those fantastic albums. This one being equally just as awesome. When I put this on, my kids, they gravitate. They actually do, because it's a very subtle album, but they immediately, their ears kind of just tune into it. It's a very hypnotic type of album, but it has the tones are very uplifting tones. They're not dark tones. Like when you listen to Phaedra and Rubicon, it's like I said, it's very cerebral, very trancey, and it's almost coming from kind of a darker place. Edgar Froese is, those guys, Klaus Schultz, they're some darker dudes. But this one has a little bit more of an uplifting tone, a little bit more of kind of, what I mean, just kind of like a more, major key to it. I don't know, hard to explain. Super cool art. My kids just automatically, like I said, they lock into it and they start kind of just tapping their toe. And this is stuff that they like. It's, they like to concentrate when this type of music comes on, and especially this album. They'll be drawing, or they'll be at the table, and they'll be working on a project, and this just becomes part of their mode, and they love it. They appreciate it. It's an album called Hyperborea by Tangerine Dream. Everyone get it, check it out. If you're at all even mildly into Tangerine Dream, this will be your new go-to. It really will. It doesn't have a lot of those darker undertones that Tangerine Dream is really known and loved for, from their early career, from the middle 70s and into the late 70s, when they were really, gaining a lot of speed. This one just has, I want to say, more positive vibes. It's love the shit out of this album, and the kids seem to too. It gives me a lot of the vibes that I get, when you listen to those more trancey, kind of subtle tracks from Radiohead and Depeche Mode, that type of stuff. Yeah, get some. It's really, really great. Hyperborea, Tangerine Dream. Well, again, everybody, about midway here. I wanted to thank you all again for supporting me and visiting my channel and completely ignoring me. Just wanted to say, if you enjoy watching what I'm doing, or if you don't like what I'm doing, feel free to comment. Tell me something about, how bad I am at the lighting. Maybe I need to brush my teeth. I don't know. Dig that thing out of my nose. Tell me you like my content. Tell me you like the interesting and creative lists I'm curating. It'd be neat to have a comment or two. I've been doing this, is my fifth video, fourth video, fifth, or something like that, and I've received 0 comments. I mean, not entirely true. My first video, everyone was really nice, very polite. No, great job on the video, man. It's really cool. But beyond that, I've received absolutely 0 feedback. So it'd be cool to have a piece of feedback every now and again. I hope you like the lists. So yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody for stopping by and giving me a thumb and whatever else. So I'm gonna keep making these lists. It's a lot of fun for me to show off my record collection to you guys, because I in turn get on the YouTubes and I search other people's videos out so I can find out what they like, and then I can be like, ooh, I'm stealing that, you know, and I'm gonna pretend like I am the only person who's ever discovered that. You all know what we do. You all know what you're guilty of. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on my path here, talking about records that are just as easily enjoyed with your family and your children. This one, special place in my heart again. This one was, I think, on everybody's dusty old record shelf. Any one of you that were born and raised between the years of 1975 and 1985, you Generation Xers, this one definitely permeates in the halls of forever. Dusty dollar bins of forever. I'm talking about the fantastic American prog band called Starcastle. My mother, pretty sure she had this album. I distinctly remember this fantasy, you know, stupendous artwork. You know, and the only thing it's missing is a fucking flying rainbow unicorn. Anyway, I make fun. I shouldn't make fun. These guys were hardworking American prog musicians. They unfortunately had to, you know, follow up some pretty astounding acts that were coming out of other places in the world that just really kind of had a more distinct and kind of I'd say a more mature and more talented sense of what they were doing. But honestly, dude, for a first self-titled album, 1975, probably 76, they did pretty damn good. It's hard to come after the Giants like they did. And whoever marketed it, you know, did a fairly decent job. The A side on this is actually pretty strong, like the Lady of the Lake. It's just soft rock. It's just soft rock with like a tiny flair of the prog. There's lots of great, you know, synth work and stuff like that. You know, this is one of those things I can just like, I can remember like being belly down on the shag carpet, like sitting in front of a hi-fi system and just like looking at this artwork and just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back to playing Nintendo or whatever. My kids think it's hilarious. I put this on and they are instantaneously transported, and they start like play acting and go into like this like fantasy surreal like play acting thing where like, you know, they grab something and pretend it's a microphone, and you know the guy sings in a voice that's, you know, kind of childlike, and they can associate with it. It's very mellow, and yeah. I don't know what else there is to say about Starcastle. They were really successful. They had 3 albums. Their second album, I think, called Fountains of Light, if I'm correct. That was their second or third, I'm not sure. And then one called Citadel. So yeah, I think that was the order. This one, Fountains of Light, then Citadel. Beautiful artwork, very fantasy, fantastical, shiny, and almost kind of sci-fi kind of artwork. I don't know. I love this shit. I love dark shit. And, you know, it's just so medium tempo, medium everything. Like, there's no, you know, real big highs or lows, you know, volume, or there's no crazy, you know, avant music, you know, musicality to it. So it's very just kind of middle of the road, very easy listening for everybody, for the whole family. Kids, this is a great introductory album to rock and roll for children. If you want to introduce them into something that's like, you know, moderate rock. Or if you want, just go ahead and start them on, you know, black metal. It's up to you. Hey kid, you should be listening to Crass and Fugazi. You're 10 now. Okay, we're going to go back into the kind of more, I guess, cerebral kind of mode. But not really. This dude, like, you know, fantastic composer, monumental, knew how to write really fantastic melodies, but also had the ability to be okay with working, in the extravagance and doing art pieces. You know what I mean? Like it must have been really cool for someone to be big enough in their career and have enough courage to take on things like, okay, I can compose fantastic film music and have a career doing that, but I'm also going to maintain, this sense of like doing whatever the hell I want and taking risks and working with lots of different people and doing lots of different styles. And that's just how I feel about this guy. Of course, you all know of Vangelis. I don't know how to fucking pronounce it. I'm not from the 70s. But I'm pretty sure it's Vangelis. Anyway, I mean, everybody knows him of, Chariots of Fire, and just like, all these wonderful, magical pieces that he's composed over a span of 40 plus years. I mean, I'm not sure what he did after the 80s. I don't know if his career continued. I've never looked that deeply into it, but this album is fucking awesome. It's called Albedo .39. It's a conceptual piece about, the cosmos and really cool shit like that. Albedo refers to, it's something to do with like what is it, like, not azimuth and like the way things are, the angle of celestial bodies. It has to do with like reflective surfaces of celestial bodies or something like that, and how the Earth's reflective light is called the albedo, I think, or something like that. 0.39 is the number of how it's measured. I butchered that. Sorry for any of you like astrologists or cosmologists or planetary scientists or whatever. I fucked that up real bad. Sorry, but I think that's what this is about, and it's just the track names Pole Star and Main Sequence, Sword of Orion, stuff like that. Like these are heavily inspired by the magic of the cosmos. You'll recognize these tracks. There's songs on here that have have been used in sci-fi movies, that have been used in the very, very famous series by Carl Sagan, the Cosmos series from the early 80s, when he did a series of TV. It was a TV series. And this music was used all throughout that. Really cool. Lots of cool shit. I put this on and my kids, same kind of thing like I was just talking about with Star Castle. This music, like, they instantaneously like turn into Space Lord and whatever they've got around them becomes a prop in this like space drama, and they're portraying this like nebulous queen, and it's just like it brings out the creative nature in children, and that's the most important thing about why we do what we do, and this ritual aspect of getting around the campfire and playing with each other and being humans, and it's like expression of art. It's like, why else would we be humans? What are we here for? We're here to express ourselves, and what an incredible piece of art and expression. Beautiful photograph. I think that's a cue ball in a shot glass is what that is on a grand piano. But players of light make it look like something far more fantastical, So shout out to Vangelis, 35, 40 years later, and your masterpiece Albedo .39, it's really fucking good. Get it. Okay. Let's get, whatever. This has just been like a pile of like super quirky nerd shit. Isn't it great? It's awesome. It's just going to get even worse. It's even worse. Of course, you're all rolling your eyes now. Oh, of course you had to bring this one out. Yeah, of course I had to bring this one out. Like, what the fuck? This shit is amazing. It's just amazing. It's so goofy and fucking ridiculous, but still amazing. We're talking about a man named Mort Garson. the wizard himself, the Wizard of Oz himself, again, one of the men credited with being kind of like a godfather of electronic music, you know, and his ability to, how he learned how to, you know, patchwork of cables and oscillators and Moog and all sorts of, you know, synthesizing music and all the stuff he was using to create these amazing soundscapes. But even a more impressive composer, he really wrote some really fun little, you know, quirky, fun little, it's music for plants and for people who love plants. It's music to feed your plants. It's really great. Everyone should just fucking swallow their pride and go out and get this album. It's awesome because it's an obscurity, you know, that remained that way for decades. And luckily, we have this amazing record label, a modern day record label called Sacred Bones Records. Anyone that isn't familiar with Sacred Bones, do some research. They're really, really fucking cool. Besides just, you know, getting the rights for all these like really cool old oddities and obscurities and making sure that they get repressed and brought out from the basements and the dark places of the world, and so everyone can know about it. You know, there's all sorts of modern day contemporary, you know, giants are being put out on this label. John Carpenter and such, some really great pop rock and electronic groups like what are they called? Oh, who's that group? I love them so much. Moon Duo. Check out Moon Duo. Yeah, Sacred Bones. Anyway, everybody should get Plantasia. It's so much fun. And like I said, this is the centerpiece of, like, you know, this is how, you know, fun little conversations with your kids get started. Like, you know, everything is a learning tool. Everything. And once I put this on and it captures their attention and we start talking about plants. I'm like, well, yeah, this music is music made for plants. Plants want to hear music too. Wait, Dad, plants don't have ears. And I said, well, buddy, don't you think that they can sense vibrations? Don't you think that you like vibrations too? That's what music is. It's just airwaves pulsating, you know, and you get into this like type of like scientific conversation, but the scientific conversation stems into something that's a little more, you know, heartfelt, a little bit more on an emotional level. And then suddenly my 7-year-old is understanding that, like, yeah, plants are living organisms, and now he doesn't like pick petals off of flowers when he walks down the street now. Now he appreciates and respects living things so much more. I mean, I'm not talking, he wasn't like, you know, like kicking puppies and shit, you know, but he was, you know, he wasn't disrespectful either. But now he has a gained respect and a sense of worldliness, you know. From a 7-year-old, to me, that's just like, that's fucking astounding. Like, you take any 7-year-old and get them to like get outside of themselves for 5 minutes a day, that's a fucking phenomenal thing right there. So yeah, that's what this type of album will do, and that's what I'm talking about. Music is so important. Everybody, I'm not trying to talk from a you know, an ivory tower. I'm not trying to condescend or anything like that. I'm just saying everyone ought to make time, save a little bit of money, and just try to like make a little section in your record collection, you know, right between the crustcore metal and the punk and the ambient, you know, little section in there for music for you and your family that can be enjoyed by everybody, so that when you are in those places and you're all in the home together at the same time, around the dinner table or around the TV or, you know, whatever you do, have that little chunk of music that you can share with each other, that you all enjoy and you can all talk about and you can all laugh about, you know. I just feel that that's really important. And it's something I think we're beginning to lose in our cultures and as a people, as a civilization. I really hope it never goes away. Music is really important. People are already forgetting how to play musical instruments. So we need to hold on to recorded music as long as we can. I'm going to end on this one. What a fantastic album. Everyone should look into if you can find a copy of it, or if you can just get it on your music player. a bit of the eccentric and a bit of the odd, a bit of the avant-garde, a bit of the musique plastique. This is a Frenchman by the name of Teddy Lasserie. This album's just titled E equals MC squared. It's, I mean, just like I said, a beautiful pastiche of just ambient, down-tempo, kind of just quirky, conceptually driven. We're talking you know, the titles of the tracks are Life, Quasar, Earth, Nebula, more crazy nerd shit that I love. These are extensive electronic, you know, ambient pieces that are just like very, you know, elaborately composed, and there's lots of things going on. There's lots of fun little like moments of kind of pop sensibility and fun moments of you know, we're not just talking, it's just, you know, it's not 45 minutes of just kind of drone and just spacey sounds, you know, which I love, don't get me wrong, but there's conceptual design to this. And I know it doesn't really seem like it by the kind of, you know, third grade artwork on the cover. But that was endearing to me. I immediately kind of was like, what the hell is this? And then I listened to it and I was like, oh man, that's fucking great. You know, and I put this on and, you know, I put this right here and my kids look at it and they're like, hey, that's neat. And then suddenly my son's on the floor listening and humming along to these wonderful tones, and he's trying to draw pictures of Saturn, and he's asking me things about Saturn. And Dad, which one's this? How come they're so close in proximity? You know, it's coming from my 7-year-old, you know. That, you know, I'll stop going on. This album is so great. A Frenchman, you know, in the same ilk as, there was a group of these guys, all from France, all in the same era, you know, we're talking 75, 78 through those 3 years. Dominique Guiraud, or something like that, I think his name was. He has a real popular album called Univers de la Mort, or something like that. It's kind of Mike Oldfield, so it's more like guitar driven, more kind of like pop prog driven, but very, very similar in the sense of like what they were trying to achieve artistically. Similar to this, another guy named Bernard Estardi, another Frenchman, of course, and he made an album that was like in the late 70s as well, but it was way more kind of in the vein of like, you know, leaning toward the pop sensibilities, and he was like involved in like the, you know, the dance hall, discotheque, you know, discotheque scene, but also did like some real like, you know, ambient electro, you know, soundscape kind of work. Anyway, yeah, he did an album called Space Oddities. Often gets confused in people's minds, obviously, because of the Bowie album. But yeah, so check out Bernard Estadi, his Space Oddities album. You can find a copy of that was repressed recently. This album has never been repressed. This is only pressing, first press on RCA. Everything's in French in the back. Pretty rare album. Really glad that I snagged this for a decent price. So that's going to end our talks tonight. Fun for the whole family. I hope everybody enjoyed at least a little bit of this video. I sure did. I mean, like I said, you know, nothing's more important to me than sharing music. And what better way to share what you hold dear and what brings you passion and what gets you that fire inside, you know, and to share it with the little demons that you've created in your life, you know, whether or not you decided to have kids or accidentally had kids or whoopsie daisy, I don't know. I really hope that you're enjoying it, and I really hope that music is a centerpiece of that part of your existence, because it should be. And I'll be honest, it makes my existence more bearable. And I really feel that that's a huge part of why we do what we do and why we make music is, you know, not just to make our existence more bearable, but to bring that level of, it's just otherworldly, and it's just, you know, it's the only real magic that we still know how to create. You know, when magic left the world and left the human race, you know, I think we still possess just a little bit of magic. And I think that's what music is. So, again, everybody, thank you for joining me. And don't forget to keep spinning records, play your tapes, play your CDs, keep them clean, put them away when you're done. Square the circle. Love you guys.